process to do a revaluation, you were losing between 600, 800, a million, $1.2 million per year in tax appeals. That became effective for January 1st to 15th. That has shut off the bleeding. The appeals have gone down immensely. If you remember from our slides that we have, there's been a tracking of that we've done every year. So that is added to revenue, which is adding to your fund balance, which means that we've been consistent with 2.5 million, 2.55, 2.55, 2.85, and 2.85 the last 4 years. So it's not a raid on the fund balance that's generating the tax decreases. That's been very stable. In fact, we're using less of a percent than we were before. The 5-year plan that was established, Mr. Simpson came to me early in 2015 and said, how do we get this stuff straightened out? What should we do? And I said, you need a plan. You need to put down, with assumptions obviously, as to what you want to do and what's going to happen going forward. The 5-year plan this will be the 5th year of it coming up, and it's been pretty close to on track to what we anticipated and what we projected. So the planning, the person to run the ship has made the financial position in very good shape. You've had, and one thing, and I'm told this a lot in different places, when people come in and pay their tax, they're paying the county tax, the county library tax, the county health tax, the county open space tax, the school tax, and your tax. So if you were to go home and look at your tax bill, and look at 2014, and look at the local purpose line and saw that you paid $3,020. If you look at that same line in 15, it went down. From 15 to 16, it went down. From 16 to 17, it went down. From 17 to 18, it went down. They're true tax decreases when you look at the tax bill. We expect to see that one go, again, down as this year progresses. You don't have control of what the county does. You do have some control of the school, since you appoint, well, you have a lot of control of the school because your Board of School Estimates is 3 of the 5 votes, which determines our spending. The amount of tax in 14 is probably about, if it was $2,080, in 2018 it was $2,070. So it really hasn't changed much at all. It went down a little bit, but not much. So what you're controlling very well for the public. The financial plan's in place. It's been proven. You have, again, a capable person to get it. Roxanne has developed the budget, most of the budget for 2019. And again, most of your budget deals with people. You've heard me say it like 9,000 times. It's how many you hire, how much you pay them, what benefits you give them, control your budget. The rest of the stuff doesn't mean a whole lot. We know almost everything and who's going to get paid what in 19. The only thing that we don't know between that $300,000 and $600,000 is how much we're going to collect in taxes, what other revenues we're going to get, and what the return to surplus, which should be the $2.8 million we should return. And we'll use it again next year. So that's a fast overview. Obviously, I can stay here all night and tell you all about it, but I know you got other things to do. Well, so that's a quick overview.
What's amazing is you know the budget so well you don't even have any notes with you. But I also, you want to comment a little bit on the capital side?
The capital side, yeah. The capital side is even more impressive. We will have a bond sale next year, and for items that, or ordinances that you've done, when that sale happens, our debt will probably be less than it was in 20. It'll be less than it was in 19. This again has been. You have a. Get this slide. If you look at that chart, that shows that declining debt service. Now we will fill in some of that in 20. We'll fill in that again in 25. That's planned. I mean, you know you're going to do capital stuff. So when you do the capital projects, the goal for the finance side is to do it without affecting the taxpayers, and that clearly is going to happen. So capital is even in better shape.
Fantastic. Any questions?
You levy about $55 million in taxes in 2014. You levied about $57 million in taxes. Now you say, all right, went from 55 to 57. So how we have a tax decrease? Because the tax increase was on the county tax, not on your tax. If you looked at yours, it was 22 million and change. Now it's 20 million and change. It's down to $1.3 million almost. The school, 16 million plus, 16 million plus. They're almost the same number. So, yes, when people come in and pay their tax, if they look at their total bill, their tax is up. That's not under your control. You got to go home and look at your tax bill and look at the local purpose tax line, and you'll see it went down every year.
Is that a myth or is that a fact?
That's a fact, yeah.
Leon, how many towns out of the 23 towns in Atlantic County do you do?
Out of the 2320.
20.
I'll do 3 of them, yeah.
I see. So you're a professional. Can you tell us what a cap bank is?
Oh, okay. Cap Bank is, there's two banks, and one is on the spending side. You're only allowed to spend so much money, and if you don't spend that much money, you get the banking. It's not money, it's the availability to spend more in the future. That bank gets carried for 2 years. You have gobs of room in that. The other one, which is now the more important one, which was instituted in 2010, is the levy cap bank. The levy cap bank started at 4%, which meant that if you had $22 million, you could add 4% to that, plus some other items, to come up with what you're allowed to levy. That got reduced to 2%. Christie reduced it down to 2%, so that really started to squeeze the towns on their spending because it could only levy up to the 2%.
Right.
In 2014, your cap bank was 0 because you levied it up to what the tax levy could be. So you taxed to the max on that levy.
So we maxed out and
In 2014.
we had no money to spend.
You had no money to levy.
Levy.
Not to
and-
spend, yeah,
Okay.
to levy. As of the 18 budget, it's in one of those slides. If you look up that one slide, okay, right there. It's you have about $3.2 million now of the cap bank. In other words, if you wanted to, you could raise taxes another $3.2 million.
Okay.
You wouldn't want to do that.
No.
You have the ability to do that, yeah.
Now, we're the tax cutters.
But that's why that bank's so big, because you've been cutting tax every year. And one way to look at it is if you took $22 million times 4%, that's $880,000 that you could raise. If you don't raise it, and you decrease it by $300,000, that's $1 million that you didn't raise. Do it again, do it again, do it again, that's probably a $3 million cap bank.
So it's not real money, it's money
No.
you can raise
It's money
out of
you
the
can raise,
taxpayers if we
Yeah,
decide.
They call
to
these
do that.
things banks.
Right.
But there is no cash. Yeah.
Okay.
It's the ability to do it.
The cash is the taxpayers.
Pardon me?
The cash is the taxpayers,
Yes.
if we wanted to do that. Okay. Is it true that we are the third lowest rate in the county?
Either second or third, one of the two. I've seen 18 abstract ratables, but I did not look to see that specifically, but you're probably 2 or 3. You traditionally have been third, but you've been sneaking down, so you might be 2.
Okay.
Do you have the abstract ratables? Okay, all right. We can look that up real quick for you, but
Okay. How does Brigantine compare to the other 22 towns in Atlantic County?
if you took Atlantic City is a totally different story. Obviously, there's many things that that they've been doing to bolster Atlantic City. And if you look at the past couple of years, they've had tax decreases with the influx of the pilot money, the state aid money they've been receiving. So they've had decreases. I would bet anything that there's no town has had 4 years in a row where you can look at your local purpose tax and see that it went down. I think that's going to be an absolute statement. There's been a couple decreases in places, but 4 years in a row. Galloway might be 3. But you're the leader.
You're saying we're the best.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us what is fund balance? I know what it is, but it seems like that's a hot button issue in town, that the fund balance, and if you do not collect enough money out of your fund balance, your taxes will go up, no matter.
There's the good and the bad about fund balance is that it's created by if you say we're going to collect $675,000 in four-wheel drive permits and you get $700,000, $25,000 goes into the fund balance. You say you're going to make $30,000 on interest on investments and you get $80,000, $50,000 goes into the fund balance. That's for every revenue, including taxes, and that's number one source of where fund balance comes from. Number two is, if you say you're going to spend so much money and you don't spend it, that goes into the fund balance. If you receive money that you did not anticipate collecting at all, miscellaneous revenue, that goes into the fund balance. And then there's cancellations of appropriations for whatever reason, that goes into fund balance. So the pattern has been extremely stable in the last 4 years, and like I said, let me just quote them to you. That's right. The levy cap bank is $3,283,000. The fund balance, in the 15 budget, you use 44% of the fund balance, 47.8, 44.8, 44.8. So you look at this chart, and again, look at other towns, and I don't want to be talking about anybody in specific, but you'll see 68%, 32% because they don't have any money, 44%, 58%, 30% because they don't have any money. Fred's in different towns too, and he knows what I'm talking about. So, but your consistency, when the rating agencies look at this, they say, oh my God, you guys do the same thing every year, and you keep generating a little more surplus, you keep cutting taxes. So it's a great picture to look at. In fact, you're one of the few towns I've ever seen get 2 upgrades at one shot, when you had your rating was increased by two levels in one spot. That's usually unheard of. That's because they look at that picture between the actual raw finances and the management team, that's all around it, and how you operate. So when they said fund balance is good and bad, it's good to have it, but it's bad if you mismanage it. And that's the real issue. If you have a lot of fund balance and you use too much of it, then you start a downfall. Because once it starts going down, it's hard to get it stabilized and bring it back up. So if we had used $4 million last year instead of $2,850,000, we would be dependent on the 19 budget of having $4 million again. The chances that happen would be 0. So that's why it's important to manage it, and 44% for 4 years in a row is pretty remarkable. And this isn't made up stuff. This is real data.
It's been called myth.
Pardon me?
Your budget has been called a myth.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's why
Well,
I
the
want to
fairy
make sure
tales
everybody
I'm
knows
looking at,
it's the truth.
Yeah.
And we're pretty fortunate to have you and Roxanne at the financial helm of this city, and I think
I've been doing this for 44 years, and I don't fake anything.
well, that was my other question to you, Leon. I've known you for the last 6, 7 years now. Would you ever lie for me?
Would I ever what for you?
Would you ever lie for me?
No.
I know that. Yeah. You're.
I can tell you I've known Leon for over 28 years.
Yeah.
And
I didn't want to bring you into it.
well, he's very, very, very direct.
Yes.
In terms of his advice on financial matters.
To the point where if we had a meeting and you said, I want to say that we're going to do this, this, and this, I said, I'm not going to support that. I said, if you want to ask that question, you're going to get my answer, not your answer.
Right.
I've told many, many, many local officials that. Don't
I
ask me
would
questions
never ask you
that don't want to hear the
not
answer
to tell the truth. We're not here to lie or anything like that. We're here to have a great financial future for Brigantine. So the reason we don't use more surplus, we used 2.850, seemed like 2 years in a row, and we're pretty consistent on that, is so we don't fall off the end of the table and have to start raising taxes. Your taxes might go down 2 cents, we might have to raise them 6 cents next year.
Right.
So
Stability is the key.
we just want to, we want to be even, even keeled. We can't have spikes and valleys in our, financial.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Costello?
I could have sworn Mike Reardon was going to speak.
I'm sorry?
I was going to defer to my colleague from the second ward. Perhaps he'll want to follow me. I don't know.
It's all yours.
Thank you, Mike. Leon, thank you for the presentation. You noted our tax rate is, I think you said, the third lowest in the county?
I believe so, yeah. It's either second or third.
Yeah. And our rateable base is about the third highest, right?
It's, Margate's higher than you. I believe that Galway might be higher than you. It's second or third, yeah.
Oh, we are?
Okay.
Third or fourth.
On
Yeah.
the internet?
And all things being equal, the tax rate is going to be a function of your spending and your rateable base, right?
The tax rate will be a function of how much you're raising in taxes and what your rateable base is.
Okay. You mentioned that the fund balance is comprised of a couple different elements, including revenues which exceeded what you may have projected in a given year.
Yes.
That's one of them?
Yeah.
Expenses or expenditures which did not come in as high as you had anticipated,
Correct.
and taxes, money that you bring in through taxation.
And what, I'm sorry?
And the money that you bring in through
Yes,
your
yes.
taxation. Okay. Year to year, and let's say from 2016 into 2017, I know you can't do 2018 yet because it's not over. We had a pretty good increase in the year-end fund balance, didn't we? Between 16 and 17?
It went from 5,700,000 to 6,300,000.
Okay.
From 16 to 17.
So plus or minus 800,000 difference?
6.
Oh, I'm sorry, 5.7. Okay. How much of that, if you know, was from increased revenues?
I'd have to go get the audit report to look at that.
Okay.
I mean, I'll have that off the top of my head.
All right.
Increased revenues, I'd be guessing, but let me see. In taxes, we had budgeted for 22,947,000, we collected 24 million. So there's 1.1 million more came in taxes. In miscellaneous revenues, we budgeted 5,314,000, collected 5,006,000, so 300,000 came in for that.
Okay. And how about savings on expenditures,
That was-
spending cuts?
That won't be in the budget, and Roxanne only has her budget file here. It's easy to look for. I mean, I can give you that information, I just don't have it with me.
No, I understand. And in fact, you provided us a chart back when we did the budget of the year-end fund balances, so,
Yeah.
I have that information.
That year-end fund balance in the charts I gave you doesn't have the detail how it got there, it's just a picture
Right.
of where it's...
A raw number, yeah.
Right.
So the 2 years before that, going from, I believe it was 15 into 16, or, I'm sorry, it could be 14 into 15 year-end. Is that when it went from 3.6 to
5.3, yes.
5.3? Okay, so that's a jump of about 1.7.
Yes.
Okay, and again, not to put you on the spot, but if you know, how did that 1.7 come about in terms of breaking it out from increased non-tax revenue, spending cuts, and tax revenue?
The largest thing in that one would have been the reval taking place. Instead of losing $1,300,000, you made $800,000. So that's a $2 million swing in the comparison of what happened in 14 compared to what happened in 15.
Well, the reval came on in 14, right?
It was effective for 15, wasn't it?
No, 14.
For 14?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's correct. So at the end of that year, the appeals would have been less for that year than they would have been for the previous year. So that swing in the appeals is a big contributor to it. And the 14 budget was I don't know how to put this, but it was a mess. And there was a lot of money left, and there was money budgeted that wasn't needed in a lot of places.
Okay, and I'm not going to agree with you on that, but I'll accept that.
Okay.
So at the end of 2014, though, year one of the reval, the fund balance stood at about 3.6.
Yes.
And at the end of 15, which was year 2 of the revals, the tax appeals would be out of play, as they were in 2014. We were at 5.2, right?
5.3.
5.3, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
So a spread of about 1.7 between end of year 2014 and end of year 2015.
Mhm.
So my question, and again, I'm not going to put you on the spot with this because I know you don't have the information in front of you, but just conceptually, so I understand it, that 1.7 in some fashion is going to be attributable to money generated through taxation, money that we realized in increased revenues over what we projected, and money that we realized through savings, that we didn't spend, that we budgeted for and didn't need.
Right, and other miscellaneous revenues.
Okay, well, in our budget, are miscellaneous revenues a significant number? I mean, I think our biggest revenue items are four-wheel drive and beach tag sales, right?
No, I'm talking about revenues that weren't anticipated, not anticipated, unanticipated.
Okay, were there...
That number can fluctuate up
Yeah.
and down.
Were there any significant unanticipated revenue numbers that year?
From the year 2015, sitting here, I can't tell you without looking.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember a lot of stuff, but yeah. But I can get that information for you.
And I may take you up on that.
Okay. Mhm.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. Costello?
I just wanted to say, Leon, our bond rating was, I guess it was over a year ago, was increased to AA, was it? Standard & Poor's?
It's double A.
Standard.
Yes, double A even. The categories, top is triple A, then there's double A plus, double A even, double A minus. You went from A plus, so you skipped double A minus, went to double A.
Right.
Is the change. You're 2 away from the top.
Okay. And with this, the way the finances have been managed and just what we were just speaking about just a few moments ago, and that AA rating, I mean, that helps us as far as the interest we have to pay. Correct me if I'm
absolutely,
wrong.
yeah. Mhm.
Right? And when we have capital improvements done and things of that nature.
Right.
It's beneficial to the city.
Mhm. It's worth probably a half a point on the interest rate, so if your last sale was 2.4%, it would have been 2.9 with the A plus rating instead.
So in turn, we won't have to get that money from the taxpayers.
Oh, definitely.
We'll be
yeah.
saving money.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Leon, I want to thank you again for that report, but also for all the years that you have been helping us immensely with our finances and making sure that we're in compliance, but more importantly, having a plan, a long-term plan for the financial health of our city. And there's nobody better than you are at doing that.
And the planning is important, and not deviating and breaking your rules that you've established to make stable budget and stable tax increases or decreases, like in your case. And you've done your last budget.
Yes.
And it's been a wonderful 28 years working with you,
Thank you.
minus 2.
Appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, Leon.
Thank you, Leon.
We'll see.
Thank you, John.
So as most people know, we have a contract with the Richard Stockton University Coastal Research Center. We've had one for, I think, as long as I've been here with Stockton to monitor our beaches. And we have that contract because it provides us with data that we need for our beach replenishment, beach renourishment programs. And we are very, very fortunate to have Dr. Stuart Farrell, who is probably the foremost expert on beach erosion, beach nourishment in the state of New Jersey, working right at Stockton. So Dr. Farrell is going to come here, he's here tonight, to provide us with an update, as well as we have the Stockton Coastal Research contract on for approval tonight. So Dr. Farrell is going to give us an update on the status of our beaches, and I'm sure there'll be some questions about dunes as well along the way. Thank you, Dr. Farrell.
Thank you. It's actually been since 1992, so I'm another old-timer.
Yes.
For a bit. Over the years, we've been following this. The first beach nourishment was done jointly between Brigantine and the state of New Jersey in 1997. That was then followed up with assistance from FEMA as a result of a disaster declaration in early 1998, leading to a 2001 project, which the state participated in. 2006, the federal government stepped in and began putting sand on the beaches from about 1,600 feet north of the end of Brigantine Boulevard down to 5th Street South. And over these 2.5 decades, it has amounted to about 3.8 million cubic yards of sand derived from Brigantine Inlet ebb shoals that are out there in front of Brigantine Inlet. The most recent job was done last spring with 750,000 yards of sand placed on the beach, restoring mostly the entire promenade revetment beach, which had the rocks exposed, and now once again they're hopefully still buried. We do surveys on 9 sites all the way down to the jetty at the Absecon Inlet. And the sand that was placed, we see that in the profiles that we did this past spring. The remainder of the beach from 15th Street South to the jetty in between the fall of 2017 and April of 2018 gained 90,000 cubic yards of sand across that distance, which is not a huge amount per foot, but 90,000 yards of sand that came in, probably not derived from the fill, because this material was out there being moved around by the northeast storms in 2018. Started in March, and February was dry and cold, so was January. But March they started, and almost every week there was a northeaster of modest nature, fortunately, but they added up. In fact, Mother's Day was a northeast weekend. It blew 30 knots from the northeast all day Saturday and Sunday on Mother's Day, May 13th. So it was one of the latter ones of the season that we had to go through. The work has shown that right now Brigantine's overall coastal oceanfront is in fantastic condition. It really is. The sand movement, however, is moving from north to south, and it has been since Columbus discovered America. It has been a process that's going on. The inlet jetty at Absecon Inlet traps a great deal of it, making the profile at 43rd Street approximately 900 feet wider than it was in 1986 when we first did it for the state of New Jersey. So there's an enormous amount of sand accumulating between the jetty and about 15th Street South. That site we've surveyed. I started working there in 1971 for the proposed offshore nuclear power plant that was supposed to go in Little Egg Inlet. In 1977, didn't happen because of 3 Mile Island. And so as a consequence, that site at 15th Street South was about maybe 130 feet wide from the bulkhead in front of the then hotel out to the low tide line. Today it's almost 600 feet. Now there's no dune in front of the structure between 14th and 15th South. They suffer every time the storm waves do come across the beach and get into the front of the building, but that's their choice, and I guess they'll have to live with that factor. The dunes on either side held up to Hurricane Sandy in magnificent way. In fact, most of the beaches south of 20th Street South all the way to the jetty saw water in the dunes, but no erosion of the dunes. The beach was flattened out, of course. It looked like it was just a billiard table going into the ocean, and then offshore there were these huge whitewater linear bars of that sand that had been extracted from the beach. So, back about 20 years ago, I had an engineer come in from Weeks Marine who does beach fills, and he talked about this thing called sand backpassing. I bring it up again because you are probably the third best candidate in the whole state to actually undertake this kind of an operation. It's been going on in Avalon since 2006. From the middle of the barrier island where the sand seems to go in large amounts, and we pick it up from the berm, from the actual beach itself, and truck it in these large capacity trucks to where it erodes away from, and place it and grade it afterward. The city of North Wildwood has been clearing sand from the city of Wildwood's stormwater system. They have 8 stormwater outfalls on the beach, but the end of the stormwater pipes are 460 feet behind the high tide line. So essentially, when it rains in Wildwood, they end up with these huge lakes instead of a beach. And finally, they have to dig a ditch and it drains off, and that's kind of annoying. So what we've been doing for the last 4 years is excavating a fan-shaped opening at almost high tide so the water can get out when it rains. And all that surplus material goes up to the city of North Wildwood. And last year, they moved 200,000 cubic yards by Memorial Day and placed it on their north beach, which is highly erosional, just like the north end of Brigantine is. The thing was important about this is that there's no mobilization cost for a hydraulic dredge, which is $1.2 million for the first cubic yard of sand. Every other yard is about $12, $13 a yard from an inlet. So in that case, the truck mobilization was about $70,000 to get 13 trucks on the beach, and then they did 2 shifts, and to get it all done by Memorial Day, 200,000 yards. That was an awful lot of driving, but it's all done on the beach. None of it's on your roads, none of it's, on the infrastructure. It's all at the wet dry line along the beach. They just up and forth, back and forth, they go all day long. In the report we just submitted, I suggested that you do one of 2 things. Okay, you can always pay for it yourselves, but it's still $1 million to do 200,000 cubic yards. If you can convince the Army Corps to make it a betterment to their program, to do it occasionally in between bringing the hydraulic dredge in place. Last time they were here, they spent $6,300,000. So if they can take that and stretch it to, instead of every 4 or 5 years, to every 7 or 8 years by doing the sand backpassing once or twice, and participate at the same rate financially, 65% of the cost, and then you turn them to the state and say, thank you very much for 75% of the 35%. You can then do it for 8.75% of every dollar spent to do it. I think it's worth looking at because you have the catcher's mitt down there at the Absecon Inlet for most of the sand that gets put on Brigantine beaches. Very little of it gets away to Atlantic City, much to their displeasure.
Yeah, we don't want to give them
We don't
any.
want to give it away, no, not particularly. The inlet beach, I came over the bridge tonight and looked at it, that inlet shoreline along the inlet side of the jetty, I haven't seen it look that good in years because they stopped dredging for Atlantic City inside the inlet. But now the sand that gets around or through or over the jetty at Absecon Inlet has built that up. Of course, that causes problems upstream in St. George's Thoroughfare, which the state has dredged twice in the last few years. All right, so that essentially summarizes the beach situation. On the subject of nuisance flooding, we have collected one set of data from all of the sensors that are out there 90 days after we place them. November 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, depending on the weather, we'll be over, have to arrange this with Public Works, we'll be over to do another round of data download from the sensors that are in the stormwater vaults to see what kind of events have occurred. After we do the 6 months, we'll take a look at it because you have to run this statistically through a program and somebody has to actually physically do this, and we'll get back to you as to what we see in the way of events, how frequent they are, how long they last, and what the depth of water is at each sensor, because we can tell you that without any problem. Then we can look at the weather data versus the storm information and see whether it was rainfall generated or tidally influenced by storm tides. So that's the whole process that's going on that side of that subject. That basically summarizes what we've been up to in 2018 and late 2017.
So, Dr. Farrell, the back pass process would be one that we would work with you and the Army Corps.
Yes. Well, Mr. Dixon up at the Division of Coastal Engineering in Toms River for the state. So it would be, my pathway would be to approach the DCE, Division of Coastal Engineering, and see if they would be, yeah, we like this idea. Then they turn to the Corps of Engineers Philadelphia District and convince them of making it a betterment to their program, because they have to go through a lot of convolutions in terms of their bureaucracy to change these programs. I mean, it's unbelievable what they have to do any changes of any consequence. Now, if they're going to add something, they're going through this with two things that I know about. There's a groin at the end of Holgate. We're not involved. They said, our jurisdiction ends at the first sign of a rock. And so now it's the DEP and the township, Long Beach Township, is doing that project jointly to repair that groin, because the beach sand's just going away. And they got to deal with that down Longport too, because there's going to be a heck of a spit down there. They'll have First Street back in Longport if it goes the way I think it might. So yes, they will do betterments, and they might just say, well, we'll put some money into it, but we're not going to change our program, but we'll just, we'll help you out. And maybe the state's just going to say, we'll split it with you 75-25.
Right. So the value difference may be that the renourishment project, the pumping project, would be a smaller project overall.
Or less frequent.
Right.
And that's probably where it would go, be less frequent, because you're not going to do, they won't do a pumping project if you've got 50 to 75 feet of beach covering the rocks up there at the north end. You're looking pretty good, so we'll wait and see. Doesn't say a big storm doesn't make all that meaningless, but given what we've been having in the last 6 months, going into this winter, it's hard to say, but we'll see how it works. Even frequent minor storms are better than one big one. It's always true. I mean, things can recover between these little storms somewhat. So we'll see. I mean, I'm willing to, if you're interested in pursuing it, I'll talk to Dan or whoever you want me to, and we'll see how it goes and whether or not there's any interest in pursuing it any further than this discussion right here.
I think the council, I think we got to look at all of our options in terms of replenishment.
Sure.
And then, of course, the other one that you've been working on for years and we've been looking at is the possibility of adding jetties or hard structures long term.
Hard structures, right. Hard structures. Well, hard structures have a value in slow the rate of transport down. So if sand is at A and it's going to end up at B, and you put these hard structures in between, the only thing is a lot of the sand that gets lost is lost offshore and gone forever as the process goes on. But it does slow the rate of loss at the key place at the north end to a degree. It always does.
Great. Any other questions for Dr. Farrell?
I'm intrigued by the idea of looking into the back passing as well. I think it's a good idea. It sounds like it could be economically favorable too. And I know, as Phil mentioned, you've been looking for many years into the feasibility or not of groins. And with the understanding of the inherent weakness in them, do you see them as potentially a viable part of our overall beach protection system going forward?
If there's a bunch of, Avalon went through this exercise for their north end, which also erodes rather repetitively, and they spent sizable amount of money on a review by Tetra Tech down in Florida on how these drawings would function in a model study. And when they came back with the model design, the locals who used the beach went, no thank you, because they came out with a structure that went perpendicular and then had a breakwater at the other end of it, which was about 100 feet in length. So essentially you swam between these rock headlands in this cove that would then be built. Now, the model said that this would make a very stable beach, but everybody thought about this and said, that's not my idea of a beach. So they kind of, and the cost was about $4.5 to $6 million per drawing, and they needed 4 of them. So, and the Corps of Engineers said, not us. It's not going to be our money that does this. It will be you and the state if you choose to do it.
Yeah, they told me the same thing when I met with the Army Corps about doing groins. They talked about the same benefits you had, but they said they would not participate in the cost because there wasn't a cost benefit to them.
Yeah, well, yeah, they did this back in 1996 with the cost benefit issues when they worked on groin structures for Absecon Island, and they didn't really do a great detailed work on Brigantine because when they separated the 2 projects eventually. But on Absecon Island, they said it wasn't worth it. It cost too much.
So I'm also happy that we were able to have them stop using the inlet as a borrow zone. As you know, we called you in a panic when we had no beach left on the south end. It went rather quickly.
Yeah. Well, that was because they dredged 600,000 cubic yards from the inlet, 400 feet from the rocks. And the sand sitting there looked at a 20-foot deep hole, went, okay, in we go. And the hole was refilled in a year and a half, but all that sand came off of the inlet beach. So, yeah, it was pretty obvious. Now, over time, the restoration of escaped material, one thing that the winter storms did this past spring was get sand around and over the Absecon Inlet jetty in large quantities. Probably about 40,000 cubic yards of new material was put on that inlet beach. And I know from the fact of being over on an airplane, it's very popular on the weekend.
Yes. Okay, any further questions for Dr. Farrell? If I could ask you to stay with us for just a moment, because we're probably going to have some. Just stay right there, because we're going to have some questions, I'm sure, about the resolution on the dune maintenance. So the resolution we're dealing with right now is authorizing the professional service contract for the monitoring of the beaches with the Richard Stockton Coastal Research Center. We have a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
You?
Yes. Reardon?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
DeLucre?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Simpson?
Yes.
Mayor Gunther?
I'm going to abstain, as my wife is an employee of Stockton.
Motion carried.
Okay. Stay there just for a second, Dr. Farrell. We're going to move into our approval of the dune maintenance permit. This is Resolution 2018-183. So it's a resolution of the City of Brigantine providing for the permit application for dune maintenance in accordance with ordinance number 23 of 2018. And this also attaches the application for dune maintenance and the dune maintenance activities requirements. So we have a motion and a second, please.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. So I'm going to ask Dr. Farrell for his
Please do so.
his opinion.
He's working with us.
Yes.
Hand in hand on this whole project since May.
Yes, we've been communicating back and forth about, the language. I mean, I'm fairly sure that individual owners themselves are not going to be doing this cutting. It'll be their landscapers.
Yes.
And so the language in here which requiring them to come in for the permit and with the discussions about what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, I think covers it pretty well. The only thing we talked about was this bullet point number 3, work area is restricted to the area between 2 parallel lines perpendicular to the shoreline, extended from the property corners to the lesser distance to an access road, if there is one, or the crest of the primary dune. However, south of 15th Street, there's more than one primary dune ridge. So we put in the language, or if there's more than one dune ridge to the crest of the first dune ridge seaward of the property line. Otherwise, they're going to have them out there 800 feet from 43rd Street. It goes for 800 feet before you're at the edge of the dunes. So, if they want a better sort of, the blocking of the view is done close to the house where the view is being accessed from. A tree 800 feet away, or even a bayberry bush, is not going to block much view 800 feet away. Now, the Japanese pines, the state has already come down pretty thoroughly in the borough of Avalon, got rid of all of them. They just said, we're going to just get rid of them. I think that can be a local option. I mean, they're an attractive tree. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not indigenous. Yes, that's true. And when they get to be big, and they'll be 35, 40 feet high when they're fully grown, their branches will eliminate most everything under the tree, with pine needles in the shedding of the pine needles every year. So that was what they were objecting to, and that's what the state said. It essentially was eliminate. If you have a cluster of them, there's no dune grass or other vegetation on the dune. It's just pine needles and these big trees. So that was what that was all about.
So that actually would weaken the structure of the
Yes.
dune.
Essentially all the other vegetation disappears because it doesn't get any sunlight.
So it would really benefit.
Now, if you
the
limbed them
structure.
up, I mean, that was one thing. One owner down there said, well, I'm going to limb them up 20 feet. So they took all the limbs off up 20 feet. There was this big cluster, looked like a Christmas tree on a stick. And, and that lasted, I guess somebody in the family didn't like the look because the trees disappeared shortly thereafter.
So Avalon eliminated them all.
On the coastal ocean front, yes. If you want them in your backyard, God bless you.
So in terms of the way that they are removed is to stump them, leave the root structure in place.
Correct. Yeah, just, cut the tree down and cart it away and just leave the stump in place. Do not dig up the stump because that disturbs the dune in the process. And in fact, some of the people simply cut the bark all the way around and just let the tree die and then got rid of it after the needles all fell off it. So that's another option. But most of them just cut the tree down and left it. Now, as far as the bayberry is concerned, they don't want them killed by excessive trimming. So if you cut the thing a foot off the ground, you've done it in. So,
right.
But they will spread laterally. If you take the top branches off, they will spread like a bush.
And the rules here, that it can't be any lower than 8 feet above the dune surface.
Correct.
So that's a pretty good-sized bayberry bush.
Yeah, definitely a decent-sized one.
Yeah.
Yes. No doubt about it.
Okay, any questions for Dr. Farrell?
Dr. Farrell, my understanding is that DEP does not have any regulation which affirmatively requires us to remove or trim any vegetation in the dune field.
That is correct.
Okay. So it's an option.
It's not prohibited, but it's not encouraged. So they, in Ocean City, there was a bit of strife over essentially an agreement with the oceanfront owners that the dunes would not be allowed to grow more than 3 feet higher than either the boardwalk surface elevation or the bulkhead, where there was no boardwalk, which was elevation 10. So if the dunes got to above 13 feet, they were a violation of this agreement. The problem was that was hard to keep from happening, and it did. And essentially the DEP's answer was, You cannot go in there and remove the higher elevations with machinery. You could essentially, if they wanted to, and this is honest, this was Mark Moriello, who was the commissioner of DEP some time back, and says, send in an army of landscapers with leaf blowers and blow the sand off the high spots and be done with it. The suggestions we made was, they have to show and demonstrate the amount the view is blocked by this growth of the dunes. And recently we did do about 6 properties, and we found, well, it was about 1.2 foot above the agreed elevation, and everybody sort of looked back and forth and said, well, we're not really going to get too worked up about a 1.2 foot at this point. And that dune was not near the source of sand anymore. They had growth seaward in the middle of Ocean City to the extent like you have here at, say, 27th Street. So all the sand was being accumulated, hundreds of feet from the homes.
And that, of course, is a very Mark Moriello-like quote that you mentioned. That situation, though, was unique to that location. We don't have a comparable restriction
No,
here.
that was unique to Ocean City because they made this agreement. The dune in that Beachville was up to the local. It wasn't part of the that first Beachville in Ocean City was a navigation plan, not a shore protection plan. And so building the dune was up to Ocean City, and that was between the city and the oceanfront owners for this 3-foot elevation difference between the boardwalk or the bulkhead and the dune crest.
Thank you.
So, one of the things on this we have to be clear about, and I'm trying to find it in there, that if they are trimming the dunes, and it does say the landscaper has to be an arborist,
Yeah, I could do it.
okay?
It does say-
Trimming the trees, trimming
No trimming in-
the bayberry.
Yeah.
That mechanical equipment is not to be driven on the dune. It has to be, they have
Or
to be,
hand prune.
but they can use mechanical equipment, correct?
You mean a chainsaw?
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
If they're gonna, yeah, I would imagine a chainsaw would be okay. I mean, if you go out there with loppers, you're gonna spend some time.
Right. But I think it's, and I'm trying to find the spot where it says no mechanical equipment.
It's right at the end. The last page.
Oh, here it is. No vehicles or motorized equipment on a dune or within the dune complex. So, yes,
Yeah.
Right.
we're tying
Vehicle.
the vehicle and motorized equipment together in that sentence, not worrying about how they're actually trimming the bayberry.
Correct. I don't think there's any specific mechanism in the ordinance about how they're going to physically do the trimming.
We tell them they can stir a bunch of anything.
Right.
Trimming has to first be done by hand.
I mean, I know that steel makes a very nice collapsible
Pole?
gasoline pole saw.
Yes.
It's really, you can reach to that lamp and trim the branches off of the lamp up there. No sweat. It's a great piece of equipment.
It is. I've had the opportunity to use it. Not in the dunes.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Dr. Farrell? Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have one or two things, not Dr. Farrell specific. I'd asked a question when we adopted the ordinance at our last meeting, if anyone had looked at our beach management plan or agreement with DEP to see how this program fit in and whether there needed to be any review or approval by DEP of actions that might be taken under this new program. I wonder, has anyone looked into that?
Fred, any issue with the beach management plan?
There's very...
Yeah, very candidly, I don't know that it's something we were asked to look at, so I haven't done that.
Yeah, you may not have been tasked, I'm not suggesting that you fell down on the job, but the question for us is, can we do it? I think we need to look at our beach management plan, amongst other things, to make sure that it's not, that what we're doing is not inconsistent, or that there's not some procedural step we need to follow with DEP.
I just got finished writing a plan for City of North Wildwood, and in it, there is back and forth with the Fish and Wildlife Service, who deals with these things. There was no issues raised about trimming bayberries or other vegetation on the dunes or within the dune park that's in front of the boardwalk in North Wildwood. So it didn't come up. They're not doing it, but we didn't ask either. So your beach management plan, if I had a copy of it, I'll run through it. Oh, back in May. All right. Well,
I believe when we read it, that it doesn't address this type of beach management at all.
Okay, I'd like to get a formal response. Dr. Farrell, I appreciate the fact that in another town, it didn't come into play, but obviously our beach management plan is going to be specific to our beach, and one of the main constraints we have is that, we are a nesting site for the plovers.
Well, if there are nesting sites, yes, that's why you don't want it happening after March 15th, or certainly after April 1st until August 15th. That's the plover nesting window of exclusion. It does say that in the Wildwood Master Plan. I'll grab it. I have it. I must have saved it. I don't leave these things sitting in an email hanging out. So I'll read over it and go through it and get back to Roxanne about it. And, we'll go forward from there.
All right. And Roxanne, you'll share Dr. Farrell's response with everyone when you get it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, could we have a roll call on the resolution?
View,
Yes.
Reardon,
Yes.
Haney,
Regarding the permits, I live in an area that is directly adjacent to where these permits apply, so I abstain.
DeLucre,
My vote's going to be no. Same as the discussion we had when we adopted the ordinance. I don't see any public purpose in this entire program. The closest we've come, and for the first time tonight, is Dr. Farrell's reference to the possibility that a full-grown Japanese black pine could potentially starve out vegetation within the scope of its branches. If that is so, and I'm not questioning that, that would, in my mind, justify a program that went no further than allowing for the removal of those pines when they reach that point. So I've yet to see a genuine public purpose for any of this, and I've yet to hear any explanation of how we empower certain people who have no more ownership rights in the dunes than do I or my neighbors or anybody else who lives nowhere near the dunes to maintain, if you want to use that word, the dunes for what amounts to a private benefit and a private purpose. So, no.
Sarah,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, next we move to award of contract for a salt storage building. Dr. Farrell, you will not insult us if you don't stay for the rest of our agenda.
Thank you very much.
And what I failed to mention too with Dr. Farrell, he was instrumental in providing the research that allowed for us to have our FEMA maps looked at accurately by the federal government that had a direct impact on our insurance rates. And he did a tremendous job with that. We were able to work with FEMA with data and with science that made sense. And Dr. Farrell, working through Congressman Loviando's office, did a tremendous job, and thank you, Doctor. Okay, on salt storage, Brigantine authorized the acceptance of proposals on October 11th for a salt storage building bids were received, and the lowest responsible bidder was Levy Construction Company of Cuthbert Boulevard and Audubon, based on their bid of $454,000. We have a motion and a second, please.
Make that motion.
Okay, any discussion?
Just curious, what's the size of the building, John?
I just drew a blank. It's the same footprint as what we had before. It will be a little bit lower, and then in the back, it'll extend out to the back wall that used to be there. In the summertime, we use it for our trash, and when the building's done, we'll be using it for recycling off of the beach.
All right, thanks.
John, this has been a long time coming.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any further comments? Okay, seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
View,
Yes.
Reardon,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
DeLucre,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Resolution 2018-185 is award of contract for electrical services. The city accepted sealed bids on September 27th, and the bids were evaluated by our financial team and our Director of Public Works, and the lowest bidder, we're actually exercising a two one-year extensions as well. Possibility of that is with Northeast Electric. Do we have a motion and a second, please?
I'll make that motion.
Any questions? Seeing none, could we have roll call, please?
View,
Yes.
Reardon,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Resolution 2018-186, award of contract for general maintenance and repairs. This went through our QPA and certified that the value of the contract will exceed 17.5. It is awarded to Mace Enterprises LLC based on their submission. We have a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I asked Roxanne, and she provided me some information about the scope of this, and I gather this is it's a new contract. We haven't in the past given sort of a general contract for these type repairs. Could you, whether it's John or Roxanne, could you give me a little more detail on what kind of work is covered by this? And I'm assuming, since we're awarding it without bid, that we're anticipating total costs of under $39.9?
Yes.
Okay, how do we arrive at that?
Yeah, well, this is as a result of some projects that have been done in the city. Initially, it involved the taking down of the house on Lafayette. Remember, I don't know if you remember, we went out for bid. That contract ended up being about $14,000. Then there was some sidewalk work that had to have been done. So it started to mount where the total amount paid for services were reaching the 17.5 level. So this is just to make up for that. This is not something we've done in the past. We haven't had this happen. And this was Dennis's recommendation. I don't even know that we'll get to 17.5, but this is just as a precaution.
Okay, but my question is still, what is the work that's covered by this? What was the proposal that we got? I mean, what is being proposed?
As I stated, it was taking down the home that was elevated I said Lafayette, but I don't know if Councilman understood what I said. But so it was actually demolishing the structure, and that in alone was $14,000, which was done using bids. But there were other things. I don't believe that there's much more going to happen, but maybe John can speak to what he sees coming up in the future.
Yeah, there was We replaced the pillars in the front of City Hall. It was, we got 3 quotes, and they were the lowest in the quote, so that added to the price of the aggregate of all the things that they've done for the city. And it was over the 17,000, which kicks in the pay-to-play, but it will not go over the 39,000 to go out to bid. And I don't anticipate doing any other work right now for the rest of the year with them.
So, in 2018, we had a couple miscellaneous items like the house demolition and the sidewalk and the columns you were talking about. So, what is the description or understanding of the kind of work that might fall under this agreement going forward for the next year?
Basically, anything that we can't handle at Public Works because of lack of the equipment, like we used I'll use the example for the pillars at the front of City Hall. We had to jack up the roof to get the pillars out and put them back in. We don't have that equipment. That's why we got quotes for it. We paid for the pillars through our budget, and then they install them.
Okay. And what is the benefit to us in having any given vendor on contract to do that kind of stuff rather than getting quotes as things come up?
We do get quotes as they come up. We got quotes from other vendors for this, but because of the house raising and because of the other few things, it's at the 17,000, and this is where our pay-to-play kicks in.
No, I understand that. I'm just not making the connection, because this is a contract going forward for the next year. So if, let's say, another demolition situation came up and you needed those kinds of services, doesn't this agreement require us to use this vendor
No,
rather
sir.
than getting...
No. This is only for the pay-to-play. If another contract comes in, they all go out to bid.
So you're below the bid threshold, but you're above the, you could be above the pay-to-play threshold. So you're-
Correct. We're approaching going above it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Will we have roll call, please?
View,
Yes.
Reardon,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Delutri,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther,
Yes.
motion carries.
Resolution 2018-187, award of contract for portable toilets at various city locations. And this is awarded to Capriani Portable Toilets, Inc. Once again, it's determined, it's certified that the value of the contract will exceed $17.5. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion about porta-pots? Okay, seeing none, could we have roll call, please?
View,
Yes.
Reardon,
Yes for the toilets.
Haney,
Yes.
Delutri,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, resolution 2018-188 is a construction permit refund. Could I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Could we have roll call, please?
View,
Yes.
Reardon,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Delutri,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther,
Yes.
motion carries.
Resolution 2018-189 is a real estate tax refund for an overpayment. Could I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Could we have roll call, please?
View,
Yes.
Reardon,
Yes.
Haney,
Yes.
Delutri,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, resolution 2018-190 is award of contract for disaster removal services. And this was done through the Ocean City Cooperative Pricing System. And this would this is to Sierra's Environmental Services, Inc. We have a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
This doesn't make us we don't have to use this company if we don't want to.
No, it's...
That was the
it's-
discussion me and the mayor had.
Right.
Because the people were from
Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah. And they have to dig their way out to get here, so.
Yeah, well, there's a lot within the scope of the RFP that went out. They are bound by if they are called upon. But it is what is called a non-exclusive contract, which means that we're under no obligation to use them. But in case we have another severe occurrence within the city and we are unable to handle the debris amongst our local vendors, we'll have an option to reach out, and they have to respond within a certain amount of time. It's all within the RFP that upon which they bid. So
Okay.
it's pretty structured.
Sounds good.
Okay, could we have roll call, please?
View. Yes. Reardon.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Resolution 2018-191 is a Chapter 159 insertion of a special item of revenue for the 2018 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant. We have a motion and a second, please.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
And this is in the amount of $3,080. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, could we have roll call, please?
View. Yes. Reardon.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Chief, you want to say anything about the grant?
It's a reimbursement for, we get new vests every 5 years, so we get, it's a reimbursement for that, so,
It's great.
yeah.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, Resolution 2018-192 is an approval to submit the FEMA Assistance to Firefighter Grant. We have a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Captain Slarry, you're going to be working with our grant consultant on this?
Yeah, this is for, well, the ladder truck we got now is 19 years old, so it's up against its life expectancy. So this grant is for potentially falling the new truck. And if I remember correctly, it's 95% on city's liability is 5%. So that's basically what this grant's for.
And we've been successful in the past in getting these grants, so hopefully...
Along with major equipment, there's a, I know Jim goes out.
Great. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
View. Yes. Reardon.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, Resolution 2018-192, approval to submit, we did that one. Resolution 2018-193 is adopting amended 2018 spending plan. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll make second.
Okay, and this is resolution, the spending plan for the fair share housing for the settlement that we have with the third round of our affordable housing obligation as entered into by the court. Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
View. Yes. Reardon.
Yes.
Haney.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, resolution 2018, or excuse me, we move now to our consent agenda. We have the Elks raffle license number 868 and the Presbyterian Church hayride request. Have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, are there any council manager or committee discussion reports?
I have nothing there.
Thank you, Roxanne.
One question. Actually,
Report, that's supposed to be a question.
oh, I have a question. I thought this was an appropriate time to bring it up.
Okay.
Council manager discussion.
Okay.
So, had a request from one of our residents to take a look at the circle, at Roosevelt Circle. They said it's kind of dark there, and if there's anything we can do to either add some lighting or do some reflector tape around the circle to make it easier for people to see as they go around. So if that's something we could at least take a look at and just kind of assess if there's anything the city could do. Just to take a look at.
Go out there in the dark. On my way home.
Okay. Any other council manager reports? Okay, at this time, I'll open the meeting for public comment. Anyone who would like to address council, please step forward, use the microphone, and state your name and address.
Go on, get John this.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Anton Marzano. I'm an owner at the Moon Bay Townhouses. Another owner, Murray Rappaport, and I have been asking members of the council, Council Delucre, and I think Deputy Mayor Simpson and Councilman Serra, about the abandoned pipes, drainage pipes in back of our property. And we're here tonight to find out what was happening with that, and we've been told that there are now bids out for this, and that hopefully this will be resolved in the near future. And at this point, having learned that, we would also just like to express our thanks to the council members and the city for addressing the problem and hopefully having it done quickly in the near future.
Great. Thank you, and I know that there is a plan in place. John, do you want to talk about that?
I spoke to the gentleman
Okay,
earlier.
good.
We received the quotes. I actually received the last one on Monday. We're going to write it up, and hopefully we can get it done beginning in November.
We were told that at the beginning, before the meeting started, and we both thought that it was nice for us to stay and thank the council and the mayor and the city for that. Again, thank you all.
Thank you for coming.
Very nice.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thank you.
Sorry, what address is that?
Pardon?
What address is that?
My address is 539 Lagoon Boulevard.
That's not the property you're speaking about, though?
It's to the left of my property. Is it
Right
one
behind
back
this
of your
gentleman.
property? Andy, is
Yeah.
that the 541?
Yeah, where the outfall pipe is.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Deputy
you.
Mayor Simpson, we were out and we were at, was it Murray's?
Murray's house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your place when you showed it
Right.
to us?
Right.
And, yeah, so Deputy Mayor Simpson jumped right on it.
Exactly. That's why we're here also to pay our gratitude again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, guys.
When you guys came to my house, and you took pictures and everything, but you also asked us to reach out to Mr. Delicre, but we did. So, again, we want to thank all of you.
Right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, any other public comment? The young lady, Joanne?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. You bringing a plant? Do you need a hand with that?
We have problems. Bigger than the apple.
I was hoping for an apple.
While Joanne is coming up, I want to thank her for the gorgeous garden over here in front of the library. She's worked a lot with John. She had her $2,000 grant, and it looks spectacular.
And it's not even done.
And it's
Finished.
not even
Phase
finished
one.
yet.
Yeah.
Joanne Milnes, 22 McDonald, member of the Green Team Garden Club, Master Gardeners, library volunteer, and cultural arts. So, number one, Green Team. We did receive a $2,000 grant from Sustainable Jersey, and we had to wait until this time to do the planting. The name of the grant is Conservation Restoration Education, and we have conserved plants that have been pulled from garden club members and the public bed in the parking lot on 26th Street, a lot of donations, and we have rebuilt the berms and the sign around the library. That was the conservation and preservation, especially after the car hit our steps. The education piece of it will be continued through the spring.
I'm planning on working with the schools, which I already do, and the library and programs, so that we can enable our young people of this island to realize how important our environment is and how important volunteerism, because we live in the trenches and we kind of make things happen, just as much as elected officials. So I invite you to the Green Team's final farm market on Saturday. Hopefully this will be our little public thank you to the organizations that have helped us, and you can get to see the final planting. We have one more stage to go in for Saturday. Then after that, we'll be doing mulching and seeding and such. And hopefully, I'm giving up, you spoke about Roosevelt, I'm giving up my bed on Roosevelt because as a Green Team member, I'll be maintaining those beds over here. Second thing is on Saturday, the Brigantine Cultural Arts is having the People's Choice Award, and we have 3 judges coming in to do an artistic judging of the 18, I believe, scarecrows that have been put up around our town. It's grown since last year, so we're having, as I said, the People's Choice Award. We're going to have people voting for what they see and what they like on Saturday, and then we have 3 judges coming in and doing an artistic judging, and we'd like to, at this November council meeting, present the winners. If that's okay with you, if I can get on the agenda. And the last thing is, not at Apple this week, but when I was retrieving plants from the 26th bed parking lot, the middle bed has no water, and it's going to be turned into parking spaces. The other 2 sides have water, and we're looking for people to adopt them. My concern last council meeting was the fact of the public property and changing things for their view. Well, when I went there to pull out and see what we could bring over to the library, I found 2 of these just sitting back behind the Garden Club's bed that's up against the dunes. And they're not small. So I don't think that somebody walked from Brigantine Avenue to dump them, but somebody dumped them. And that's my concern about being near public property. Is this going to create a problem? So we're going to have to also have our police forces kind of look around and see that things aren't being dumped, because these were deliberately dumped behind what we've been maintaining for years. So that was my concern, and that's why I brought it. I'm going to replant these, and we're going to donate them to the school, which is what I do with anybody else that's pulling their beds from their plants. We bring them into the school to keep life going and to teach children about our environment. Okay? Hopefully I'll see you voting on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Yes, Mrs. Phillips.
Ann H. Phillips, 308 27th Street. 3 items. Based on the complaints I've heard, there appears to be a problem with the sound of the proceedings of this council meeting on Channel 97. So I don't know how it is tonight, or if somebody who is responsible for seeing that the sound system is up and running properly.
John, you want to handle that?
I'll take care of that, sir.
Make sure it on.
I was down here today, made sure everything was up and running. When we got here for the council meeting tonight, it was up and running on Channel 97. During the very beginning of the council meeting, I was informed that the picture went out. I went back and tried to reset the Comcast equipment that we just got 2 weeks ago, and I can't reset it, so I will have Comcast back here again. We are live streaming, and it will be on the city's website tomorrow.
Yeah, that was the second question. I know the former police chief, Jim Bennett, did a good job of making sure that people outside of Brigantine were able to see the council meetings at any time. So that program is continuing, is that correct?
John, will they be here? They'll be here between 8 and 3?
We get a $20 credit.
Till last time it was between 11 and 5.
Yes.
And the third item, which is a repeat of what I said at the last council meeting, and echoing Councilman DeLucre's concern with what is a public purpose and what is not. I would wonder, when somebody turns in an application for a permit, perhaps to have maybe, let's take the Japanese black pine tree, stumped, if that concern represents a concern for the dune and what is growing there, or simply is a self-serving request to remove something that is obstructing a view. And I think it's bad policy for a government to basically favor certain private property owners within a certain area to alter what is, in this case, the dunes, public property, and of great value to the island as a whole. So obviously, the government has a responsibility for the dune system and seeing that it fulfills its protective function. But you have relinquished part of that responsibility to certain private owners, which I think is basically an abdication of your duty. And it's giving people, certain people, priority over the whole island. And I think that's wrong. And I don't think that the objectives are based on environmental issues. I think in most cases they're probably just self-serving to improve their view. So I think that's something that what you're doing is not in the best interest of the whole island. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Phillips.
Bless you.
Bless you. Okay, is there any other public comment? Yes, John.
Hi, gentlemen. My name is John C. Ferret. I reside at 1315 Ray Avenue. I have no businesses here. I'm not in real estate. I'm not in builder. I'm not in construction. I live here. I love it. I'm getting very frustrated with the politics of the island. And Rick, I'm going to start with you when I'm done with everything else. First, I want to thank the Republicans. I hear we have a tax decrease coming. Thank you. Please don't give all the money away. Please. We need some money for just in case a Hurricane Sandy comes again. Rick, I'm kind of disgusted. Beginning of the year, you went to get rid of the Brigantine Rams, Brigantine Soccer, Brigantine Football Team funding. I called up Jerry Barbero and said, what can I do to stop this? And then you denied it. Flat out lied. And then I get attacked by Rob Palillo, okay? Call me an asshole, and then dropping names with lawyers. Listen to me. If Rob wants to come down here and take it outside like a man, I'll take it outside with a man.
John,
The other thing is...
John, if I'd ask you, please control your language.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This should be...
I'm sorry. You're right.
But it
You're right.
should be issues that are before council tonight.
Before council,
We really don't...
I see Vince Sierra in church every Sunday. And doing a great job. Every Sunday I see this guy in church.
If I can ask you to, Father Ed has asked all of us to move on. And I love that you're here to support me, but Father Ed has asked both campaigns to move on, and I think we need to be respectful of that.
So,
Okay.
John,
He has
please,
asked us.
you know, I know it's the political season, but this is a council meeting, and
Okay,
I appreciate
it's a council meeting. I don't think a lawyer should run the government. I think a businessman should run the government. I think Donald Trump is doing a great job. Our economy is going the right way. This guy right there is a business owner. He knows what he's doing. He makes money. He doesn't spend money. He doesn't raise our taxes. The last time you were in office, you raised taxes, and that's what you want to do again. I am not going to allow that to happen. You want to get rid of the fire department and put minimum wage people there.
John, if you would, just, you know,
I'm
this
sorry.
is just bring business before council.
Business before council.
John, I appreciate what you're saying, but this
All
is
right.
not the place.
The money that's left over from the tax decrease, is it enough money to cover us in case there's another superstorm Sandy that comes through?
We have, the city's finances are in very good shape. Now, you know, Superstorm Sandy or any event, and hopefully we never have to deal with something like that again. There are resources that the city will have at its disposal, which we've had the last time. But certainly having a cushion, having surplus does help. But as you know, it's a huge rebuilding effort. FEMA is involved. The state of New Jersey is involved. Everybody is part of that process. But the city's in very good shape.
Now, the $400,000 that we're paying on our loan to own the golf course is now done. Does that fall into the bottom line?
The debt service portion of the debt for purchasing the golf course is paid off, yes.
That's great. You did a great job by holding on to the golf course. I want to thank you guys, because that's just a positive asset for this company, for this country, for the state.
Thank you.
That's all I had to say.
Thank
That's all
you.
I had to say.
Thank you.
And I do have a response. You want to hang out for it, John?
I'll hang out, Rick.
Well, John, go back and forth. Yes.
Number one, John, I'm happy you were able to find time to bring these issues to council's attention at the last meeting before the election, and not at the 100 or so times you've seen me over the past year. But since you bring them up now, get even one fact right. The fire department, never, ever, ever, in any way, shape, or form, have I tried to get rid of, or limit, or minimize, or decrease the fire department, or the police department, or public works. I, in fact, have been the person who has always said, on this island, it would be insane to attempt to do anything other than have a full-time paid police and fire department. So that's one. As far as cutting funding, or I think we went even further, I was going to get rid of the Rams and all of the other organizations. 100% wrong, as always, John. Nothing about that is true. I have never voted or spoken in favor of getting rid of any of those. I have praised those organizations because they deserve it. The only thing I ever said way back when, and no one has ever spoken the contrary, and in fact our attorney has proceeded with the acknowledgement that this is in fact right, is that as a council we need to have a realistic and constitutionally sound system to figure out which of our many deserving groups get money and make sure that they get them on objective terms. That's it. So that's not destroying or getting rid of anything. And as far as your political opinions, First Amendment protects them. God bless you, and God bless the First Amendment.
I'm glad Larry's here to hear this, because we're out there.
John, thank you. Okay, is there any other comment to City Council? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public portion. Are there any additional council comments?
I have two. Friday,
Princess.
Saturday, as Joanna said, is the final fall farmers market. There will be pumpkin decorating for the kids, chili cook-off, which sounds yummy, and music will be provided by the Folk Music Society. Also, Sunday, October 28th, will be the annual Halloween parade, sponsored by the Republican Club, not to get political about it. We line up at 12:30, St. Thomas parking lot, and we proceed down the avenue, followed by the police department. The fire department will be leading us down to the 26th Street ball field, where the Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring a fun fall fest, or fall fun fest, with games and prizes for everybody at all ages. So we're looking forward to good weather and a lot of people to participate in both the farmers market and the Halloween parade.
I think someone was asking if they could dress up the doggies and stuff for the costumes and at the back of the parade.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
You've never excluded dogs before?
No, I don't want to
We
be...
just don't want them in the front of the parade.
Actually, if you don't mind, I would like to add something, because a statement was made here, and I went back through my notes. And actually, on the August 17th meeting of 2016, Rick, you brought up the issue about whether or not the city should fund our youth sports, and you actually said that you wanted to end it. So, I mean, if you want to go back and pull the record, you can, but I have the notes here that that's when you brought it up, and that's when you wanted to end the sports, because you said that the city did not have the authority or the constitutional ability to fund those programs.
Vince, thank you for your editorial comment to what I said, and what I said on the record, I have said consistently since 2012, which is that our state constitution doesn't let us make monetary donations without standards. That has been something I expressed to our attorney way back when. Fred did proceed on that basis to simply have the sports organizations and others develop themselves as not-for-profits or reconfigure themselves as not-for-profits. At no time did I take any money or vote to take any money away from anybody. At no time did I say we're not going to have or we shouldn't have sports. I said we have to do things legally. And I said that before, I'm saying it now, because it's true.
So you've been proposing to cut the funds since 2012, not 2017?
I'm sorry, what part of what I said did you just not hear?
You just said 2012.
I've been here since 2012.
At this time, are there any council comments?
Yeah, I have one. As you know, our mayor's retiring, 26 years and 28 years on council. We are having a little celebration for him tomorrow night at the Elks Club everybody's welcome. It's not a political event, anything like that. It's just Brigantine showing their appreciation for our mayor, Phil Gunther. Democrats, Republicans, doesn't matter who you guys are, just come out and say hello to Phil.
So,
5 to 9, and it's a free buffet. Not an open bar, but
The bar will be open.
the bar will be open, but Vince is paying for it.
So, in spite of my repeated attempts asking the deputy mayor not to do this,
Did I ever pay attention to you in
No.
6 years?
and this is, we are having that event.
Just one last thing, I guess, unless Dennis has something, but the Brigantine Beach Cultural Arts Commission also has a paint party on Sunday, November 4th, from 1 to 4 p.m. at the VFW. Refreshments will be served, and this one's going to be different because the painting is going to be done on slates from an old church. So that's pretty cool. Mary DeMarco is the contact. It's $40, and her number's 266-1685. There's an ad in the paper on Sunday. Like Joanne said earlier about the scarecrows, it's pretty cool. We got a lot of entries, 18 entries. There's, so come on out to the farmers market on Saturday.
Thank you, Michael, for ending on that positive note. Okay, seeing no other business before council, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Once again, I want to thank everyone for coming this evening, and for those of you who tried to watch at home, hopefully you heard us or you saw us on the internet. Thank you for your persistence and for tuning in. Have a good night.